to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Council Vice President DiGirolamo, if you wouldn't mind reading the Open Public Statement, Open Public Act Statement.
This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of July 3rd, 2018 was included in notice sent to newspapers of record and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and has remained continuously posted as the required notices under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk.
Excellent. If we can go ahead and please stand. Before I begin, I'd like to ask if we could take a moment of silence for town resident Jay Jakasic, who lost his life this week at the early age of 34 years old. Jay wasn't a relative of a politician, he wasn't a politician, he wasn't a relative of a town worker, but he was a community resident who lost his life far too early. So we have a moment of silence.
Dear God, guide us as we conduct matters of business today, and especially tomorrow as we celebrate our nation's history and revel in all the great things our country has achieved. Thank you for blessings of liberty, independence, peace, and for all those who have bravely given their time in defense of freedom and justice. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that we need to remain civil throughout the entire course of this meeting. We are a governing body. There will be no taunting from the dais. There will be no outbursts from the crowd. If someone comes up to speak, you're more than welcome to clap for them. If you agree with them, I would appreciate it to keep positive and do not boo the speakers, regardless of what side or what position you take upon their speech. If someone is out of line, someone does yell from the crowd, we will move to remove you. I need to keep a strict decorum. We need to maintain professionalism at all times. So with that being said, roll call vote.
Council President Holfer.
Here.
Council Vice President DiGirolamo.
Here.
Councilman Davis.
Here.
Councilman Lutz.
Here.
Councilman McVeigh.
Here. Approval of minutes.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Councilman Lutz.
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Abstain.
Council Vice President DiGirolamo.
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh.
Yes.
Council President Holfer.
Yes. Moving forward, we have to have an executive session because Jamie charges us too much. It's a resolution to provide for an executive meeting of the Town Council of the Town of Phillipsburg for the purpose of contractual matters and litigation. I anticipate being inside there for no longer than 10 minutes, and I do believe action will be taken.
No action will be taken executive.
No action will be taken executive outside. Perhaps. Okay. With that being said, can I get a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Lutz.
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Council Vice President DiGirolamo.
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh.
Yes.
Council President Holfer.
Yes. Okay, so we were 22 minutes, I hear. My apologies. We were close. I thought we would only been 10 minutes. Motion to reconvene?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Lutz.
Yes.
Councilman Davis.
Yes.
Council Vice President DiGirolamo.
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh.
Yes.
Council President Holfer.
Yes. We do have a guest in the audience this evening, which I'm happy to introduce, and I hope I can say his last name correctly. It is Caciavelli. Mr. Caciavelli from Bridge Construction. So if you and Jeff.
Mike's the attorney.
Oh, Jeff. Well, Mike's the attorney, so he's the important one. Is that it? He's the important one. Please come forward. and Jeff Melnick from Bridge Construction. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out today. So you're here to give us a quick overview?
Quick update, absolutely.
Beautiful, thank you.
Let's show it this way, what's the best way?
that okay? I'll just stand off to the side over here. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council President, members of the council, public. It was a few months, actually more than a few months ago, I guess I was here informing everybody that Bridge Development Partners had acquired the Ingersoll Rand site, both pieces from Lopatcon and Phillipsburg parcels. Oh, and I'm sorry, let me introduce myself. How about we start that way? My name is Jeff Malanek. I'm a partner in Bridge Development Partners. We are, my office is in New Jersey. We're a Chicago-based company with offices around the country. We are industrial developers. We build warehouses. And we build warehouses on sites that are legacy or compromised sites, if that's the right proper terminology to use. Myself, I've been in the industrial warehouse development business since I was a little guy, 1987. Somehow the years went by. Used to work for a company called Heller Industrial Parks out of Jersey, one of the major developers and owners in the state and in the country. Our mission in bridge development is to fulfill what is referred to as last mile distribution needs. We've probably all heard about that. What it is basically is that companies today, if I were to ask who uses Amazon in the room, does anybody ever use it, ever hear of it, right? So, okay, not that this is Amazon, don't get me wrong, but the concept is that Amazon is e-commerce, right? And we're all kind of gravitating towards that. And what all the companies are looking to do is to get as close to a population density base as you can, which is why New Jersey is one of the most sought after locations in the state. The challenges, though, with New Jersey is that there aren't a lot of industrial parcels of land left that's zoned. And the parcels that make sense to put just-in-time e-commerce last mile delivery, whatever you want to refer to it, chances are they're old manufacturing sites. And those manufacturing sites have challenges. When I agreed to sign on as a partner with Bridge, they said, we want to be in New Jersey. I'm like, yeah, right, doesn't everybody? I'm a Jersey guy, I can talk like that to these guys. Then they said, okay, we want old manufacturing sites. I said, okay, great. But we're going to have to tear buildings down. I said, okay, great. We're going to have to do geotechnical things because some of the soils aren't stable enough to support the buildings. Okay, check that box. And we're going to have to do environmental remediation of contaminated sites. Check that box. And they said, do you have any of that in Jersey? So I jumped right on board because that's where I saw the opportunity was. And just as a background, I opened the office in 2014, and in 3 years, we built 3.4 million square feet of warehouses along the I-95 corridors on sites that are a lot more complicated than the Ingersoll Rand site. So we are real, and we do build buildings. And I know one of my challenges coming onto sites in any city, any town, is that when I walk onto legacy sites, they have a long history of being dormant. They have a long history of having developers trying to figure it out. I know this site in particular has had its own challenges. You've all lived through it. I'm here to say that we just spent $41 million cash money to buy this ground. And we are in the process, as you'll hear in a minute, of going through the final approvals. And I'm proud to say this fall you'll see bulldozers beginning to move dirt and getting ready for site plan for buildings. So what I'd like to just kind of point out briefly is kind of what our plan is, because I know one of the challenges as you drive by the site, number one, it's so big you can't hardly see anything that's happening. But in my world, one of the biggest challenges are getting all the approvals you need to build buildings. And not to say that that's the town, certainly not the town. The town's been very cooperative with all approvals and engineering and everything else. But I have DEP, I have DOT. Because there is active remediation on the site from Ingersoll Rand still, I had to coordinate with Ingersoll Rand on the final part of their cleanup. So all of that happens, it takes a lot of money and time, but now we're to the fun part, we actually get to develop buildings. So our plan is And if you recognize the site, let me just orient myself for a minute here. Okay, so this is Route 22 over here. This is Low Batcon. And the bounds of this site is Phillipsburg. If you've ever been on site, the prior owner of the site has demolished the majority of the buildings on site, except for this one. This is the old Curtis Wright testing facility. Curtis Wright has agreed, we've worked out with them, they've agreed to terminate their lease, and they're building a new facility, I think, in Bethlehem, I'm not sure, which will allow us the opportunity to take the last few buildings down here and ultimately develop the site. The immediate challenge we faced here was that Ingersoll Rand's cleanup is kind of happening in this kind of a motion, and they will be out of this area here with, really, it's not terrible, a lot of what we refer to as historic fill and soils and such, and then they wind up in this direction. This is the top of the hill, and I think I mentioned this last time, there was a 1 million gallon oil tank on top of the hill, and it broke. So 1 million gallons of oil went to the ground. So they are actively still in remediating this with technical thing called thermal desorption, and it's kind of beyond my pay grade. Our biggest challenge was trying to figure out what could we develop on what timeline and work around Ingersoll Rand. So we've worked all that out with Ingersoll Rand, we've worked it out with the Office of Brownsfield Reuse and DEP, and we have a solid plan to move forward. One of the main requirements we needed for access is right here at 22. And if you've ever had the pleasure, I hope you don't, trying to work with that state agency, it's certainly a challenge. But I'm pleased to say that I believe in the next 90 days, we will have the final permit for the cut off of 22 as well as the signal. Now, one of the other key elements of this project is what's called this, we call it the spine ribbon, to make an interconnection between 22 and ultimately through the rest of the park. One, we need it for access, but number two, this is where all the main utilities are, right? Water, sewer, et cetera. So we have to connect the two pieces to get water and sewer. This is $30 million of a road and sewer that we're going to start working on. We have in Phillipsburg preliminary and final plan for the road and the utilities, so we're fully good to go. We've been working through resolution and compliance with your engineering department. And I'm proud to say that as of next week, we begin to see what we refer to in our business as soil erosion measures, because before we move there, we have to put down silt fences and these kind of things. So you'll begin to see some more equipment here beginning to put soil erosion and what have you down there. We need to do a couple of more agreements with the town on just some technical transfers of land. Once those are done, the last piece of the puzzle is a DEP permit that we need for a big stormwater basin over here. I believe we'll have that within the next 60 days. So we will be in next week on the 12th to the site plan. So we are going to phase this project because, as I explained to you, Ingersoll Rand is up here. And in as much as we have 7 buildings on the whole site, 6 of which are in Phillipsburg, the Phillipsburg piece is 2.8 million square feet ultimately. These 3 buildings are kind of in flux because of what Ingersoll Rand is doing and what their timeline is. However, as we've made a commitment to the council and the mayor, we are prepared to aggressively move forward on this, and we will begin site work. September 1 is the target date for 3 buildings. What we refer to as building number 3, which is 602,000 feet, or 7, I'm sorry, did I say that right? Building number 5, which is 175,000 feet, and building number 6, which is 419,000 square feet. So we are committed to move forward on these buildings. Again, we've been working very diligently with the planning board, your engineers, and everything else. This was a massive undertaking because of the size and the complexity of the site. But I'm here today to tell you, and I know you've heard this before, and I'll be back again once we actually move the dirt so you'll see it. And then you can say you believe me, and I understand that. But I wanted to update the council, the mayor, because you guys have been really terrific to work with. I know it's been a long haul for everybody through this. But as I said, we have a strong track record. We have strong capital behind us. And for once in my life, I'm in the right place at the right time. So I'm open to any questions you may have. And ultimately, this is what you will see on the buildings versus what was in the past. So it's a total transformation of the buildings and the location.
The bridge over the railroad tracks, when will that be reestablished?
Well, that won't be used for trucking at all. There's going to be a limitation on that. That'll go into the second phase, and it'll be limited at that time to pedestrian and automobile traffic. It will not be used for truck traffic whatsoever. The two main truck access points are going to be, if you really think about distribution, it comes from the port of Elizabeth, Newark, comes down 78. Most of the truck traffic is going to be generated right through here on 22 and kind of come up over the hill. I'm not prepared to say that there won't be anything off of Roseberry, but as you'll see, we also plan more modest buildings down in this area, some of it for topographical reasons, but also it's going to be smaller businesses, plus traffic down here versus the big million-foot building over here. Yes?
Are you going to be able to employ locally?
Yes, we are. As a good example, and we've had a lot of discussion. So I have a long history in Jersey, good history, I will say, and I have a lot of strong relationships with labor unions and such. And in Middlesex County, we did, as I said, about 3.4 million feet. Used all the trades there. I've already met with the building trades out here. Because they were like, who are you? And I said, well, talk to my friends back east, and everybody connected so we understand and we're going to work with that. The greatest thrill that I have ultimately is, besides just the construction part, we did a project in Perth Amway on a 104-acre site that also sat around for 20 years. It was the, we called it a SARCO, but it was the American Smelting and Refining Company. That sounds enticing. And I think that's why they changed it to a SARCO. And it was right on the Arthur Kiln. And they smelted copper, created slag, and we had, from a remediation point of view, they called each area where you find something an area of concern that you have to remediate. There'd be 52 of them on site. So it took us 24 months to remediate and do everything. And we had built a 718,000 foot building, a 350,000 foot, and a 220,000 foot. And the greatest thrill of my life is one day we signed a lease with the company. I wasn't able to tell the mayor at the time who it was, Mayor Wilda Diaz. And Perth Amway has fallen some really, really hard times. So I set the meeting up and came in with the people because I was under a, what they call an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. I couldn't say anything. Except these people had notepads with little red bullseyes on them. And I'm like, you're not going to say your target? I mean, come on. So the mayor was like, played along, because they didn't say they were Target, but we all kind of knew they were Target. Target ultimately signed the lease, and initially it's going to have 1,500 employees in the building. They've hired the first 600, and 65% were residents of the area. So the mayor was...
I was concerned with the construction.
Oh, yeah, well, we're going to be using local trades. Absolutely.
You are going to use local trade?
Yes, 100%.
That was a problem previously.
I don't know, and I don't think I want to know. But yeah, that's why I said I've already met with the Building Trades Council in Warren. We've had a bunch of meetings. And in my own histories, I go way, way back in the trades. When that was a pipe fitter, I think I mentioned that last time here. And that's all I know. And when I was presenting to, it's nothing more daunting than walking into a Building Trades Council meeting, and there's 30 guys around the table staring at it, and saying, make sure you do all the right thing. And I was going around the room, they were all telling me who they were and whatever. Then all of a sudden, one guy's like, what's your last name? I said, Milanic. He said, you're Smokey's kid. I said, I am. He says, my dad was your dad's BA. And it was just amazing how things come full circle in life. So yeah, we do. We're absolutely, we're not going to be importing trades. We don't do that. For us, we want to make a fair profit. I don't need to scrape the last dollar out of any project. It's just not worth it. So we have harmony with all the building trades going forward. You'll never see, and I commit that to you, whatever happened here before.
question about the
Yes.
parking waivers that are being requested for putting in about half as many spaces as are required, so I was.
Well, that's a and we can, I would rather defer that to the site plan hearing because I'm not prepared to testify, but I will say this as a general rule. When we come into towns looking at ordinances, generally the ordinances are set up that you need certain requirements. We've been doing this for so long, so many, we don't think we need that many at the very beginning. We'll reserve the land available, generally speaking, but we don't necessarily all build it out because there's not everybody drives to work in certain areas here, and when you really look at the counts, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of cars, and we'd rather just put in what we think we need based on experience and then ultimately build it out. I believe that's probably going to address the question, but I'd rather just come next week and ask any questions you have. We'll have traffic people here, we'll have everybody here to talk to us.
Wait, are you Miss Knapp?
Yes, I am.
I was going to ask you a question. so-
Oh, great.
Well, I have it right in front of me. I just wanted to make sure that you did. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving to the back first, I'll be back. Yes, sir.
2 warehouses, 5 and 6.
Yes.
So you made them smaller because of the logistic area. Yeah, you have 2 quiet neighborhoods
Yes.
that they're going to be smack dab next to.
Correct. And
Are you going to do anything to accommodate us? Lighting the other direct? I'll be one of them trucks that drives in there. So I mean, that's my job.
Okay.
So I've been to many
Yeah, one of the
industrial parks.
things, the initial plan that we saw didn't make a whole lot of sense to us. Now, I realize that this kind of looks like maybe one of the last plans you saw. Early on, when I got involved with the folks from Opus KTV, they had buildings and plans and loading that didn't make any sense. So ultimately, I helped them kind of craft towards this plan. Well, once we bought the property, we looked down at here, looked at this neighborhood, looked over here, and one of the first things we saw is all the loading was facing the neighborhoods. Well, that didn't make any sense at all, right? There's no way that, I've been doing this too long. So if you'll look at this plan, and you'll see it next week, we reversed it. So all the loading, all the lights that go into the parking lots are facing away from all the neighborhoods. We do have to put a certain amount of low-level lighting for safety for cars, but that's what we're gonna see.
That's fine. I'm backing it 100%. It's just that
No,
I don't
that's
want.
okay, please.
I just don't
That's
want, like I said, other parks I've seen they've accommodated to have directional lighting away from the residents.
Yeah, and you're gonna see, the only thing you're gonna see here are low building mounted lights that flash down. I mean, I can't do more than half a foot candle at the perimeter, which
No.
is very, very low. And the other thing too, by putting all the loading on this side, all the truck noises and everything else are like shielded by the building, plus they're gonna be going in other directions. So I think you'll be pleased. Sir?
That area, I drove down there before. That's a whole long, how many yards is that? From the road to this thing was a whole cornfield when I looked.
I
Is
don't
that-
have
and
the
then
information.
there's a hill right there.
So right
The
now.
hill, is it gonna get bigger for rocking sound?
Yeah, so there's a requirement for a landscape buffer that the engineering department has worked out with us, so you're gonna have that immediately here.
Is that a little hill? Is that
The problem is, I'm not prepared to say, generally speaking, it's gonna be a problem with some trees, but we'll talk about it next week. And then there's a setback before you can get to the auto park. Unfortunately, I apologize, we don't have any dimensions on this plan, so I don't want to misspeak. But as you can tell, because of the size of these buildings, that's a pretty substantial setback. So
When I drove down there, it looked to be about 50 yards. And then it was about,
well, everything that's there is changing, right? So we know that part. But we have full grading plans, architectural plans, we have planting plans. It's about this thick of plans.
I know you're paying attention to that.
No, please. That's why. Look, and it sounds a little corny, I realize, but I'll say it again. I'm a Jersey guy. My reputation in this industry is based in New Jersey. And if you Google me or look me up, you'll see that I've never had any issues with anything we've ever done because I take great pride in being a Jersey person and supporting the neighborhoods and government because it's really exciting for me beyond building buildings. My partner's building buildings. I say that's the easy part. The neat part is when you come in and you create jobs. not just construction, but longer term jobs. And to me, at this stage of my life, that's really important.
There was just originally there was a railhead. It involved a turn of a radius that would not be.
That
They
was
took it
somewhere
out.
down here, yeah, it's
Yes,
out.
they
There
took
is
it
no
out.
rail plan to be selected.
And it seemed like it would be very profitable if you could put it in, go from Fort Newark right to the railroads.
Yeah, the rail grid doesn't really run that way per se. It comes out of Pennsylvania, goes this way. But when you try to match up grades with existing buildings, we looked at it, it was hard.
So they would have to regrade it and the curves, they were worried about the curves.
Yeah, you always worry about the curves, the size of the cars, and we looked at it, it just didn't make any sense.
So that's a loss. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are the buildings going to be sold or are they going to be leased out?
So it'll probably be a combination, because we don't really know who the customer base is. We will build, in terms of speculation around spec. So we will put the buildings up at our cost, anticipating we'll be able to do something with it. My best guess is some of the smaller buildings will possibly be sold to smaller businesses. And some of the bigger buildings will be leased as investments. We as a company, ultimately, we hold some and we ultimately sell investments. But the bigger buildings will more than likely be on a lease basis because of the magnitude of dollars. But my guess is some of these smaller buildings could possibly be sold to end users, manufacturing companies. We had a company in the, it was a dairy company. It's going to Pennsylvania, just couldn't meet the time. They wanted to be in by first quarter of 2019. It was focused on this building right here. I just couldn't get through the approval process enough to do it. And so it could be some small manufacturing, it could be assembly. There's no way we can help. But what we are committed to do is kind of the Kevin Costner Field of Dreams. If we build it, they will come. I hope. Now they will. They were overconfident. We wouldn't be spending this much money.
I have to ask, this is not about that. What, my dad was a steam fitter out of Bernardsville.
Okay.
Okay, you weren't from Bernardsville?
No, my dad was Passaic Local 264.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I almost became a steam fitter. My dad's just not good at what the job was. I wanted to be an engineer and realized I didn't want to be one, so that's a whole story. It made him really happy halfway through school to hear that.
Thank you very much.
But any other questions? And again, I thank you very much for the opportunity. We wanted to update because it's been a while. It seems like things don't happen, and I understand that. We wanted to come talk to you about it. And we will we'll be back again, and we'll let you do things about the fall, so we're excited.
Thanks. One more quick question.
Yes.
With Opus KTV, there was a plan to dedicate a portion of the green space along the Packon River to the town in order to satisfy longstanding Green Acres issue that we've had. Is this still
Diversion. There's a bunch of discussion going on that
Okay.
issue right now.
Okay, I won't hear it.
Put it to this, we will do whatever you would like. So from our perspective, what we want to do and meet the needs, whatever everybody decides ultimately. So.
Thank you.
All right, one comment, Council President. I just want to reassure the residents and the council that Mr. Melanik is a person of his word. We had a very large problem in the day of closing on the property. And I met him over a cup of coffee. We took care of a $32,000 debt in escrow and the transfer of a landfill that was in the town's name, which now will be taken over by Bridge Construction. I thank you for that because it was done quickly and efficiently. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Malik, Mr. Cazzavelli, is there any other questions? No other? Thank you very much. We're looking forward to you coming back out. Okay, we can go ahead with the bills list.
The regular bill list, the current fund, $1,092,740. State and federal grants, $4,449.21. Capital fund, $12,810.25. Sewage Utility Fund, $212,332.40. Planning Board Trust Fund, $12,428.45. Section 8, $2,556.99. Agency Fund, $568.64, for a regular bill list of $1,337,885.94. No Section 8 rent payments. The prior council bill was tabled for Suffolk County, $37,000. The prepaid bill list, the current fund, $7,772. State federal grants, $49,600. Agency fund, $1,674.58. For a prepaid bill list of $59,047.48. Grand total of all funds, $1,433,933.42.
A motion to approve.
Motion?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I have this one.
Council?
From here on in, I am not going to pay bills for human resources. We do not have a human resource. Council turned that down twice already as a resolution. And as far as I'm concerned, we have no human resources. We have a business administrator, but we do not have, we have a business administrator count, but not a human resource. So until further notice, I'm not going to vote anything on human resources. Correct me if I'm wrong, if that's.
No.
Councilman, what check number is that?
That's what I was just looking for.
28622. Page 14.
No, Councilman, I don't believe that you're wrong. I believe they could be reallocated though underneath the business administrator account.
Depends how it was budgeted before.
Well, I don't believe that we budgeted anything with regard to human resources because going back to the municipal charter, we would have had to create that department. So I think the mayor would be, he could reallocate those to the business administrator account.
That's fine, but I don't think for now on we should have human resources in our building.
So would you like to table that until we reallocate?
No, unless he reallocates it. I think I'll leave it go this time.
Okay.
But next time, if there's a human resources, I'll look at it.
Okay.
Thank
Mayor?
you.
So we can just reallocate those?
Yeah, that's simply a discussion with the chief financial officer and change the language. Councilman Lutz is correct, there's no human resource office per se. It's just the title used to identify the payment and payroll, but we'll change the language if that's what will solve the problem.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Is there anything further?
No, that's all.
Council Vice President?
I'm good.
Councilman Davis?
No comments.
Councilman McVeigh? Good, sir. I have just one question with regard to check number 73139 for Aqua, New Jersey. Vicki, what is that for? Is that just for the municipal building? It's check number 73139.
I see it, I'm not sure
God bless you.
if it's just
Delaware Heights and the municipal garage,
Okay.
$300.
Okay.
Meter readings, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, that's all. That's the only question I had on this. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Yeah, we can do a roll call. I'll wait for Dusty.
Councilman Lutz,
Yes.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Council Vice President DeGrom,
Yes.
Councilman McVeigh,
Yes.
Council President Polter.
Yes. The payment of bills has been approved. We can move forward to the So we can then move forward to the public comment on agenda items. So if someone has a comment, I would ask that you step up to the podium, state your name and address clearly for the record, and proceed.
Bill Timmon, 230 South Main Street. I have 3 questions. Ordinance 2018-12. I see some numbers that have been changed since the last posting of the salaries. Is there a clarification on that? Like the bill catcher and some of the others?
On the first reading?
Yes.
Say the numbers have changed from the time it was introduced.
Yes.
Do you know which ones those are?
Well, the animal control officer was one. I'm not sure about the others. That's just the word first one that stuck out. Because it went from like 12 to 25, and this is starting at 20 to 40.
Yeah, that's what it was before.
That's what it was in the
Was
last.
in the last one.
Right, this was the same, as far as I can tell, this was the same as that it was at the first reading. The only thing different was we had written in a different title that was agreed upon at the last meeting. Instead of superintendent of recreation, we chose to go with recreation director.
Okay, then I'm mistaken.
No, I appreciate you coming up.
The second question I have is on the 21813. Did we get an official cancellation from the First Youth Center?
So I am going to motion to table with council's approval, of course, 2018-13 on account that the amendments were not ready for this evening's reading. And if you remember from the last meeting,